In other words, what is real and what is not.
As you know, we've often sought to explore the split worlds of science and spirit, and DMT appears to straddle both. A physical molecule that reveals to us a seemingly spiritual world, functioning as a spirit molecule. Continuing down our rabbit hole of psychedelics, today it's time to discuss what many people call the spirit molecule. Known as DMT, it is short for N,N-dimethyltryptamine. While fewer of us may have heard of this psychedelic than the more popular psilocybin, LSD, or ayahuasca, DMT is very peculiar. You see, it exists throughout the natural world, including in hundreds, if not thousands of plants. It also appears in every mammal that's been studied, including us. So DMT, unlike psilocybin and LSD, exists naturally in the human body. It is endogenous, which means made within the body. This happens when dietary tryptophan is converted into tryptamine using an enzyme called AADC. Then another enzyme called IMNT attaches two methyl groups to the tryptamine, and voila, dimethyltryptamine. And the rapid spread of this botanical psychedelic in the Western world is introducing the DMT experience to a vast, widespread audience. Well, that and Joe Rogan won't stop talking about it. Finally, and perhaps most significantly, DMT ushered in the North American psychedelic renaissance.
To begin with, their spirit wasn't from out of this world, it's actually very much a part of this world. And as a result, it never left this world when it died. Now, Joe Rogan, is known for talking about these things. This is what he does. He makes a living on his podcast talking about trippy psychedelic experiences and just outright bizarre concepts. But he seems to be, for lack of a better term, suspect. And from my angle, from a conspiracy theory type angle, obviously right here he has the third eye being shown on his logo, which is a false deception. A Luciferian deception that we can become godlike ourselves. He's within this sun disk, which is an Egyptian motif, and again a Luciferian satanic motif to worship the sun god Saturn. He has the lightning bolts to represent Lucifer. Lucifer fell from heaven like lightning. We're going to listen to his discussion that someone's compiled, where he discusses his experience with the jester beings on the other side. Now, he doesn't talk about them how I talk about them. He comes from a New Age perspective. He believes these entities are trying to teach him some special wisdom of some kind, perhaps from ignorance of where these things come from. He just takes what they say at word value. I mean, why would he have a reason to doubt them? From his perspective, it seems like they appear to be far more superior than he is. What I'm trying to say is these things are trapped in a poorer dimension than what we are currently living in. They've just convinced us it's better. And that comes with a whole lot of psychological reasons, for the lack of love for this world has been kind of brainwashed into us to want it to end and for the human race to need to disappear in some way. It comes with a whole other conspiratorial narrative and a whole lot more baggage. So sticking it to the topic, let's just listen to what Joe Rogan has to say. Please don't take this as my worldview. I'm just sharing this with you and other Christians out there to understand just what this man is selling to the youth. And based on my own research, that these things are demons he's talking to, and I think people have known this for years anyway in our circles. Let's just listen to how truly dangerous this can be, you know. I thought it ironic, first of all, that the video I found where it had this compiled is this guy called Jin Heyoka, and the Heyoka tribe I've discussed in previous videos, you know, as these Joker, jester type beings that look like this, with the black and white fractal lines, and it's part of a tribe that has this jester character. And here it says Jin Heyoka, and Jin is just the Arabic term for demon. So demon Heyoka, you know, same thing. But either way, this person's presenting his talk, so let's listen.
When you do DMT, you're like, whoa, reality dissolves and you're there. Like the last one that I had was very strange. Like there was these jesters that were giving me the finger. They kept giving me the finger. I'm like, what is this about? And there's this weird fractal thing that's constantly going on. But every time I do it, it seems like these lessons that are wrapped up in these visions with communicating entities, whatever they are, whether they're figments of your imagination or whether they're real. There's always lessons in there. They look like jokers. They have like joker masks on. And they
You see them when your eyes are open or your eyes are closed?
Your eyes are closed. You see them way more visual. The visuals are way more potent than anything you could ever see with your eyes open. They give you the finger. They're spinning around giving you the finger. And they
spiteful little bastards.
Well, they're having fun with you. They're letting you know, like, stop. I think it's their way of telling you not to take yourself seriously.
What do you think?
Look where we are. Like, you take yourself seriously, dude. We're in another dimension, and we're fucking mocking you.
But you're creating it, right? Your brain's creating it.
I don't know. Yeah, I would think so.
You think there's really something out there? Or?
I don't know. Like someone say, like maybe it's all in your head when you trip. Maybe it's not really happening. Okay, maybe. However, the experience is exactly the same. If you really are going into another dimension, you really are experiencing love in its purest form and forgiveness and just 100% wisdom. Like all the bullshit and all the flaws of your thinking and all of the ridiculous aspects of the world around you revealed in some wonderful dance by jesters who are giving you the finger in a never-ending complex geometric pattern. Even if it's not real, it's still the same experience.
Sure.
Like if you really do go to that dimension and you really do experience these incredibly enlightened beings and they really do instill upon you wisdom and you really do hold on to a few grains of that sand that slips through your finger, you hold on to a little bit of it while you're there. You got handfuls, but you just hold on to a little bit. It's still the same experience.
Yeah, that shit's real, son.
It's real easy to dismiss and say it's all in your imagination. But for someone who has experienced it, it's very difficult to accept. And it's very difficult for you to say that you know for sure that it's all your imagination if you haven't experienced it. I appreciate from an intelligence standpoint someone's perspective on it that hasn't experienced it, but the reality is until you know what you're talking, until you've actually gone into that thing and know how titanically alien it is, you're really just saying things. You're just making noises with your mouth. There's no way you could know. You're not there anymore. You go to a different place. You experience a different reality.
More real than what we normally interpret as reality.
That's the part about it, is it's so much crisper and more vibrant and brighter, and then reality itself seems muted in some odd way. These gestures were fuck you. I was like, why are they going fuck you? And I was trying to figure out what it is. It's like it's almost an inoculation to hostility. Like they're like letting you like, what? Why are you even taking this in? Like, you know, why are you even concentrating on that? This is pointless. There's so much more. That's what they tell you when you do DMT. That's what those things are doing when they're giving you the finger. They're like, you fucking idiot. You take yourself seriously? One of my trips, one of the most profound ones, it was like these, like, almost like children that were in this dimension. Children that were, like, infinitely more intelligent than me, but behaved like children and communicated like children. And they would say, I love you 600,500,000 times. Like something like a kid would say. Like, I love you infinity. I love you 50,700,000. Like, you know, like that kind of shit. They would say that, and then they would go, look at this. And they kept saying, look at this. And every time they would say, look at this, they would show you something that was so impossibly beautiful, like tears were like flowing down my face. Because I was conscious. I had my eyes closed and I was seeing this and I was conscious, but I was crying because it was so beautiful. And then they would say it again. I love you 600,500,000 times. Look at this. And then they would show you something even more insane, like 1,000,000 times more insane than what you just saw.
What were they
Didn't make any sense. It was just, you can't describe it. It just, the fractal nature of the universe embodied in imagery, which also had meaning and love connected to it. So when you were seeing it, you weren't just seeing something beautiful, but you were feeling it. And it was like almost like it was running through your soul, like it was cleansing you as you saw it. Like everything that I saw made me, every time I saw it, every new thing made me love people more, made me love life more, made me more appreciative, made me want to hug more. And then I thought that was over, and then would go, look at this. And then you'd get hit with a new wave. And it was just overwhelming. I'm just crying. Like I couldn't hold it in. It was just so unbelievably intense. Fuck, man. I've had trips that stuck with me for 5 or 6 years, where every day I would think about that trip for 5 or 6 years.
Tryptamine, hallucinogens, these are
Okay, we'll cover Terence McKenna another time. As he said, whether or not, he liked to bring up near the beginning, whether or not it's real or it's made up in my own mind, it's still real, man. And that's that kind of thinking which gets nowhere in my eyes. So these things are clowns, and you're not the only one who sees them. Everyone sees the same thing for us. The reason they're all going to the same place, which is a real place, and they are interacting with entities which are real entities which have a history and a reason for being there. They're not just an accidental occurrence because of some melded mind mashup of collective consciousness and thought making. These aren't figments of imagination manifested reality. These are real entities which were created due to the simple cause and effect method. These things aren't your friends, as Joe Rogan liked to kind of imply. These things don't want to help you learn something. They don't love you. I think it's interesting when he says something like, I love you 600 million whatever times. Like, they can't say the words, I love you. They have to add that on the end to make it no longer meaningful. These things are tricksters. That's what they do. They don't really care about you. They're not trying to teach you anything. You've stumbled into their realm, and they know you're ignorant. So they just mess with you. It's simple. Get you to worship them, and then you'll easily allow them to enter your body because you're completely naive and don't know where the intention of these things are. And they'll convince you it's all about love and teaching you stuff while systematically destroying the lives of you and all the loved ones around you. As they always do, from experience, millions of experiences, throughout history. That's what all these things want to do. I'm not going to apologise to some oversensitive hippies who may be really, really offended when I say these things. I was the easily offended, extreme, ultra-liberal, left-wing hippie psychedelic tripper for about 5 years. And I'm done. I'm done with it. I'm sorry. And people like Joe Rogan are just fooling people into interacting with purely evil entities. Perhaps intentionally. I think he knows what he is doing. It's just his fans who are complete and totally ignorant. I mean, look at this guy with his pictures on the Joe Rogan Experience. You've seen these things. He's pushing this stuff. With the third eye activation and nonsense like that. Yeah. These things aren't good. Stop trying to talk to them and contact them and get wisdom and information from them. Why don't you just ask them some real questions if you must go there? Like, who is Jesus Christ and what is his relation to you? And watch them. Just watch their reactions. They will attack you hideously, if not flee, if you have some form of authority using that name. Your ignorance is what fails you in this. People perish for lack of knowledge, and man, ignorance abounds when it comes to this topic. People are so clueless as to what they're messing with. People know nothing about what they're dealing with here.
I really want to shed some different perspective on the psychedelic world. As it's gaining more traction, it is becoming more popular, and I think a lot of people are becoming a lot more mesmerized with it and enchanted, thinking it's going to change their life and change their world and make them such a better person. There doesn't seem to be enough people talking about the other side of things, that it is one of the hardest things that a lot of people will ever encounter, and there can be really, really, really bad parts of psychedelics. So here goes my DMT hell story. I know that some people are going to judge, thinking that I'm a lowlife, because I used to do this as well. I used to judge people that did drugs, and that's completely up to you. I think with the rise of psychedelics, you're probably going to see that a lot of people that you didn't expect are turning to psychedelics. I'm so excited to be finally sharing it and being able to speak about it, because it was just hell. So we're going back 4 years, just before my 27th birthday, I think. I was out in nature. I was in my beginning stages of content creation. But yeah, I was minding my own business, and then there was 2 people with me. One of them that heavily undertakes the exploration of DMT very often, actually. If you don't know what DMT is, they call it the spirit molecule, because you are connected with spirit directly. Oftentimes it takes you to places that you didn't expect. And prior to DMT and taking it, I didn't know anything about it, really. I didn't know anything about it. I remember hearing about it and I was like, ooh, it sounds like this is fun. I've heard people say it. I wonder what happens. And they were saying that it's the strongest, and me being such an ignorant shit and thinking I was the shit and so strong and above everything else, I was like, yeah, I'd do it, you know, whatever, bring it on. I'm such an idiot. So I had heard it floating around, but I didn't know what it did. I didn't really know even what psychedelics did at the time. I don't think at the time I had done any. I think I microdosed a little bit of truffle mushrooms in Amsterdam one time, so I saw things slightly moving. You know, when you're in Amsterdam, you want to explore a little bit. So that was it. Weed once every 2 months, I'd have a bit of a puff, so it was very, very small amounts that I was engaging in. So yeah, this person invited us, the 2 of us, to have DMT. And so this one person went ahead of me, and this person has extensive exploration with psychedelics. Mushrooms when they were young, just not for any spiritual reasons. When they were young, they were doing mushrooms, but they were just taking these mushrooms left, right, and center because it was growing on their land. They were used to their reality not being this reality. They had previously seen other realities, other possibilities of the world, and, you know, the eyes being affected, the mind being affected. So they were ready for it. And so this person went first, and I was looking over at the DMT experience, and this person handed it to them, they smoked it, and then the person relaxed, and then the person comes back. Yeah, they have tears in their eyes, and they wipe it away, and they're like, wait, I cried? And I was like, in my head, I was like, what do you mean you didn't know that you cried? But I just dismissed that. I was like, and they started describing what they saw, the most beautiful hands of God that were caressing them in the universe, and it was just beautiful. And then they turned to me and they said, Sherelle, you're gonna love it. I can't explain it to you. You're just gonna love it. You're gonna have the best time ever. No. Psychedelics is not something to be with. It can ruin lives. It can cause so much pain and a headache, and I've been there. I have been there. I've been dealing with it for 4 years. It was hell. It was hell for me, not because necessarily of who I encountered when I smoked DMT, but because I didn't know. I didn't know that my mind could go somewhere else, into a different reality, that when my eyes were opened, I was no longer on planet Earth. It was really, really scary. Obviously, my turn is next, so I go to receive the dosage. 1 puff, 2 puff, 3 puff. They said just inhale as much as you can, really deep inhales, and so I did. I just followed directions. I don't know why I was so eager and willing to do this. I have no idea, and this is what I talk about ignorance. It's not like I wanted this experience, really. I didn't want this experience. I just thought, I didn't know what to expect. No one told me what to expect. I just went into it trusting, because I was with people that I really trust, and I still trust them. So I just thought, you know, this must be good, and they had a great experience. I was like, okay, so I'm gonna definitely have this. I'll just see some pretty things. That's what I was going in with. I was like, oh, you know, see some pretty things. I'll still be here on planet Earth. Cool story, bro. I'll tell people that I did DMT. This is not something that you just do so you can tell people. Where you have to have an intention why you're doing it. You need to know why you're going in for this. You need to be prepared. You need to have people tell you what is potentially going to happen. There is so much. There is so much. There is so much. This is why I want to share this story. One, because I want to share a story about my phobia of death that I've developed thanks to DMT. So I take my puffs, disgusting. Then I don't remember what happened in this reality. I was no longer here. What I encountered instead was entities. I know that I was still me, but I don't think I had a body. I didn't look down, so I couldn't see if I had a body, but I think it was just my spirit. But I could see this one clear entity in front of me, and there was thousands of them all around, the same ones, but he was the only one that was sharp. And they looked like Avatar. They were green and pink. The force of these thousands of people, they were wanting me so badly to come with them. And I don't know where. And this is where, you know, the thought of, some people say surrender. I don't know if I should have surrendered or not. People say when you're experiencing these things, just surrender. I still don't know how I would approach the situation from now on, because I'm also scared that if I did surrender, then what does that mean? Will I be taken somewhere that I didn't want to be taken? I just didn't surrender, and I held on for dear life. And thousands of hands were coming at me, pulling me, just being like, come with us, come with us, come with us, come with us, come with us. And can you imagine you're the only person in the room and everybody's pulling at you and desperately, like it feels like the force of the world is trying to pull you down to go. And if you leave, you're scared you'll never come back and you'll die and you'll never return and you'll never see your loved ones ever again. And so that was happening. And when you're on DMT or psychedelics, time doesn't exist. There is no such thing as time. So what I was experiencing felt like an eternity. And I mean an eternity. Forever experiencing thousands of hands trying to pull you down. And I became so exhausted. And I was resisting and fighting and resisting and fighting for so long. And then finally I just said, I can't resist anymore. And so under my breath, I said silently, goodbye. And it was goodbye to Leon, actually, because I thought I'd never see him again. So I just farewelled. I said, you know, I'm done. I'm done resisting. I'm done resisting. I'm so tired. I can't anymore. I'm just gonna go. And I thought my life was over, that I would never ever return. Because I can guarantee you that when you're there, it's real. When people say these experiences are real, it's not a figment of the imagination, I can absolutely agree with that. It was real. It was 1000% real. This is why we don't really know anything about the world. We think it's just this little 3D thing, but there's so much more. When I said goodbye, I whispered it. It was quite quiet, and that's when I started coming out of the experience. Then I started coming back into reality, this one that we have right here, the one that most of us know of very well because we are born and live here most of the time. And I remember slowly opening up my eyes and seeing the world around me again, and trees were melting. Everything around me was melting. It looked like constantly everything was melting. So I was coming back, but everything was melting away. And I thought, holy shit, I've now gone crazy. And instantly I visualized myself having been taken away into a mental institution, like, holy shit, I'm cooked, I'm done for. But then instantly in my head, like I looked at these two people with me and they were petrified. Like they were so scared because what had happened in this world is the minute I lied down after I smoked the DMT, I came back up and I came right up. My eyes were apparently wide open and I was screaming at the top of my lungs, help, help me, help, help. My eyes were wide open. I didn't see shit.
To begin with, their spirit wasn't from out of this world. It's actually very much a part of this world. And as a result, it never left this world when it died. These things aren't your friends, you know, as Joe Rogan liked to kind of imply. You know, these things don't want to help you learn something. They don't love you. These things are tricksters. That's what they do. They don't really care about you. They're not trying to teach you anything. You've stumbled into their realm, and they know you're ignorant. So they just mess with you. It's simple. Get you to worship them, and then you'll easily allow them to enter your body because you're completely naive and don't know where the intention of these things are. And they'll convince you it's all about love and teaching you stuff while systematically destroying the lives of you and all the loved ones around you. As they always do, from experience, millions of experiences throughout history. That's what all these things want to do. And people like Joe Rogan are just fooling people into interacting with purely evil entities. Perhaps intentionally. I think he knows what he is doing. It's just his fans who are complete and totally ignorant. I mean, look at this guy with his pictures on the Joe Rogan Experience. You know, you've seen these things. You know, he's pushing this stuff. With the third eye activation topic, people are so clueless as to what they're messing with. I mean, like, people know nothing about what they're dealing with here. And it's all biblical. It's all completely biblical. It's incredible. This just gets me angry. This stuff is really powerful and dangerous, and I've seen it, I've done it, and I get it, you know. But people need to be at least wise of what they're really dealing with. Don't lie to yourself and give yourself some moral relativistic explanation. That is just gibberish. Ultimate truth does exist. Opinions are just opinions. I'm sorry, I have to say this to make this loud and clear. There is only one truth out there, and we're not going to get anywhere if we're all mollycoddling each other and not arguing about these things and too afraid to step on each other's ideas to get to the solution. You know, people are going to get offended when this truth comes out. Because they like their demons, they like their gods, they like to go tripping these places, and you know they've been looked after by these monsters. But the end result will always be the same, and it ends in pain and suffering every time.
The story just finishes right there and then. Aha! Just kidding! No, it doesn't. Because this is where the integration starts, and this is something that you need a lot of guidance with. I had these people with me. They were the only people that had engaged in an activity like this before. I had no other friends that were in this world whatsoever. And so the other person that was with me had the best time ever. The other one is not a guide. He's not trained for that. He doesn't understand how to lead people through, answer questions about any of this. He's just not in that realm. So I had no one to turn to and say, help me understand what happened. That was so scary, because the other person had a great time. To them, this was the best experience of their entire life having this DMT, so they didn't see anything bad with it. And I was like, I can't function anymore. My life is going to shit. Help me, please. I need to understand what's going on. And I couldn't get any answers. So for 1.5 years, I suffered in silence because I had no idea what was happening. I didn't know what was reality, what was fake. I didn't know if this was the real world or that was the real world. I was constantly, almost immediately, I developed a phobia of death because I was so scared that if I die, I'm going to see those things again. I'm going to get pulled into what I thought was going to be hell. I was so scared of that. So that's where my phobia of death developed, because I didn't have anyone to speak to. I felt I was going crazy, and I was just trying to be normal in the real world and still function, but inside I was going through hell. Kind of thing, I started having my panic attacks around death, and I had never previously had panic attacks. And when people spoke about them, I didn't understand what they were talking about. So in a period of 3 years, I had panic attacks maybe once a month, and your body just goes into another state, and it's so hard to get out of it. And I had no tools of how to deal with it. There's absolutely no way I would be taking medication for that, because I know it was an emotional response to something that I needed to deal with. So I didn't want to cover it up with any medication. I wanted to deal with it at the root, but I for sure didn't know how I was going to do that, because I had no one to turn to. No one I knew had panic attacks. No one I knew could deal, like I didn't even want to explain to people, hey, I did DMT. It was a secret of mine, because the stigma around psychedelics is so strong. It's not as intense now, but it was, and I didn't want people to think of me as like a drug person, because some people put you in that category. So it was my secret. I didn't want to talk to anyone about this. And plus, every time I did speak about it, I would just like bawl cry, because it was such a traumatic experience. So yeah, for 1.5 years, once a month, even the slight idea or thought around death, anything around death, if I would die, like if my family would die, if any encounters of death, if I saw a skeleton, if I would think about what would happen, if anything related to death, I would just break down. And I have 3 hours of just panic attacks, constant crying, not being able to breathe, needing to be held, like help me. It was shit. My sister, she also, funny enough, had a really bad experience to ayahuasca. She also didn't do the right set and setting. She was with the wrong people. No one really explained to her what it was for. Everybody's talking up how great psychedelics are, etc., but no one's talking about the potential downsides of it as much, and there should be a really balanced view of it, because things like this can occur. And I was just speaking to her the other day, and she had to go through so much therapy. Her personality had split. She didn't know what was reality either. We went through a similar experience, actually. So we were both for years over this, and she's now starting to be better as well. Said the only reason it's good is because you were able to get yourself out of that state. Psychedelics didn't do shit. They put you in a traumatic state, horrible state, and it was up to you to get yourself out of that. And I wholeheartedly believe that now, because it is not psychedelics. It's your ability to heal yourself from the psychedelics or understand what was going on. But just the idea that psychedelics did that themselves, no, psychedelics could have killed me. Psychedelics could have made me kill myself. Psychedelics could have done so much damage to me. It was up. So being able to still remember reality and figure out what reality is how I was able to get out of this, how my sister was able to get out of her shitty experience as well. I needed to talk about it. I needed to get guidance. And for me, trying to cope with what I was going through myself and thinking I was forever going to have this thing and be crazy forever, I had to start rewiring how I looked at the situation. So all these entities that were grabbing me and pulling me down, I had to start seeing them as, you know, maybe they were really nice in order to not feel like they were bad entities, because I don't think they were. I think they had a pure heart. I think they were just overexcited to see me again. They were trying to pull me out back into their world and keep me there and show me things. And they were just so overexcited. They were excited to see me. They knew I had a short period of time, so they just wanted to show me around. Yeah, bad approach. Really bad approach. So that's how I started reframing it in my own mind. And then when I started to talk to different people about this, honestly, I can't remember what they were saying, but just the conversations that I was having was helping me to realize that I wasn't crazy. Facing off with images like this and knowing that this is actually reality as well in different dimensions, like you see entities like this and they are absolutely real.
Cartoon backdrop of this black and white checkerboard, right? And as soon as I inhaled, I knew I'd made a grave mistake, right? Grave mistake, right? Because I felt all these negative entities just waiting for me. It's like they were waiting for me to enter this DMT realm, like, yes, we this kind of thing, right? Best way I can describe it is like, I transported into these lower realms, right? These Satan's playground type of vibe, full of these cunning, sinister, trickster type jester entities, right, who did not have the best intention for me. It was like they were just with me, right, and they just wanted nothing but the worst and wanted me to suffer. And I did feel this overwhelming feeling of fear, right, which was layered with hopelessness and despair. And I did get this very kind of negative deja vu feeling, right, where I was like, oh no, not this place again. And that's what was the freaky part, is that I've entered this realm a couple times now. The first time was my last Changa trip, which I did go into contact with demonic entities and these trickster type entities. And I also did experience this realm in my first ayahuasca ceremony, which still to this day was one of the most scariest moments of my entire life. So apart from like the indescribable fractal patterns and stuff like that that you typically see during a DMT trip, I did feel the presence of a lot of evil entities. It almost felt like hell. Like I was going into contact with Satan, like that kind of shit, you know?
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist.
And I know this sounds fucking absolutely bonkers and insane and this and that, and you know, I really tried to rationalize it afterwards, but you can't, like once you go into that realm, you can't just rationally think about that kind of stuff. Like you do go to a different place. And man, anyways, during this experience, like I'm talking, like I said, within the second that I inhaled the smoke and I entered into that hellish realm, I was resisting throughout the whole time. I'm like, nah, fuck this shit. I'm not going to go into this realm. I'm not going to let them beat me. Especially because these were trickster, deceptive type characters that I didn't want to fall into their trap. So I was resisting, I was like opening my eyes, I was like moving my body as much as I can, like deep breathing, just whatever I can to get the fuck out of there. Because like the longer I closed my eyes and the longer I focused on the trip, the deeper I went and the more I descended into hell. And I did get the kind of vibe like these guys were trying to like jump into me and like possess me and that kind of stuff. So most of the trip I was opening my eyes and it was so super trippy, man. I remember looking at the carpet and these like really trippy patterns, and they were just like kind of defragmenting and coming apart, and it was like, yeah. So it didn't last long, about maybe 5 minutes, and I finally got back into this reality, but I was still pretty freaked out, and I was feeling these negative emotions, like, oh my God. And I got to that point where I was like, fuck, does DMT open up this satanic portal to somewhere? Like, is it really, maybe we shouldn't smoke DMT, you know? Maybe this does open up demonic portals where you can potentially get possessed. And what was creepy was that, like, the next day when I went into work, and I work at a telecommunications company where I deal with a lot of customers who give me their phone number and stuff. And I remember the next day, man, I was starting to see like these freaky omens and shit. And there was three instances where customers gave me their number and I saw 666. And I know you could say, like, this is just psychological biases because that was the state of mind I was in, and they were always there. I was just aware of them, and this could be the case for sure. I agree with that, but it doesn't stop it from being pretty freaky, you know? And for a long time I was trying to figure out, what does this mean? What does this mean? I was reading so many trip reports of people going into that same realm, and that's why it leads me to believe that this can't just be mere hallucinations. And then I started looking at these artist renditions of those realms, those trickster, Satan's playground type realms, and I started to see pictures which resembled exactly where I went. I was like, oh my God. So these are actually places that people can go, right? And it leads me to believe that DMT does give you access to the collective unconscious, which is deep within all of us. So it's not just our own personal unconscious, which Carl Jung coined this term. It's the collective unconscious, which is a part of all our unconsciousness, which is why so many people go to familiar realms. They visit the same entities, and so many of these insights are very consistent throughout the thousands of years that have passed through all these different cultures. So
ignorance abounds when it comes to this topic. People are so clueless as to what they're messing with. I mean, like, people know nothing about what they're dealing with here. People are going to get offended when this truth comes out. Because they like their demons, they like their gods, they like to go tripping these places, and you know, they've been looked after by these monsters. But the end result will always be the same, and it ends in pain and suffering every time. These things are not your friends. You have so much more here than you could ever have there.
You know, demons look like clowns. Demons look like jesters. They look like this. They are going to be terrifying when they come. They're giants, you know. These things are going to be so creepy. Clowns are creepy enough, but imagine what these things are going to look like. You know, they're going to look strange, but it looks like ancient tribes knew what they looked like, because my vision in modern days, when I was ignorant of this, looked just like this. I've seen what they look like. They look like this. They are insane looking. Our ignorance just makes us think it's a joke. And, you know, we're living in the time when all secrets are being revealed, if you haven't been able to tell with the Podesta emails and, you know, everything else about spirit cooking and the satanic networks that control us. You know, I'm just here revealing more information that God seems to have shown me in some miraculous, strange way of a vision. You know, Nephilims look like clowns, and now clowns have appeared in October. I'm going to tell you straight, these are demons manifesting. This is a symbolic message. Maybe they're coming back, and this is a pre-warning to those who have the eyes to see. Or maybe in the spirit of all information being released, that's why they revealed themselves. So you could know, or at least in their weird, dark magic, they can feel like they've told you. But remember, with Jesus and God on your side, no weapon formed against you will prosper.
The dream began and I was at a festival with a small group of men and women who decided to take off into the city to find a smaller pub. The scene was increasingly chaotic as the festival crowd fell away and we wove our way through narrow cobblestone streets to several clubs and pubs. It began to dawn on me that I did not know the people in this group very well. As my pace slowed to a halt, my vision glitched and it appeared that there was something wrong with the people in the group. Their legs and hips seemed to shift and their joints moved unnaturally as they climbed over toppled stones to enter the next bar. That's not a bar, I thought to myself. as catacombs came into view. Panic begins to rise as fear grips me. I try to turn and backpedal to run away and see that I haven't paid attention to where I was being led. It was straight into a corner. A dark male form appears at my side and grips my arm saying, "Where do you think you're going?" As the horror of my situation takes hold, there is a fractal flaking in my vision. From far away they looked like any other person in the crowd. But now they look like clowns. Like malicious jesters. Their facade slips and I see the malevolence that must have always been just below the surface. The danger becomes horrifyingly apparent. They look like strange jerkily moving clowns. The scene shifts to reveal their true form and the knowledge that they hunted me. Systematically, silently, skillfully, like a wolf corners its prey. When I try to scream, they are all already upon me. With stinking breath in my ear whispering, "You look like us, you smell like us. Welcome to the ride." Hope drains out of me and I start to feel as though I am sliding underwater. Somehow they had drugged me. I cry out, struggling to shake myself awake. My heart pounds in my chest as the dream fades and these words come to me.
This is what it shall be on the day of the Lord for the lukewarm spiritual eyes. Realize. Realize, woe unto you that desire the day of the Lord. To what end is it for you? The day of the Lord is darkness, and not light. They looked like clowns. From far away they looked like anything or anyone else in the world. But your eyes did not see. Up close the strange, then the bizarre will come into focus. The malevolence that has always been just below the physical realm will become horrifyingly apparent to you. Know this, O foolish ones who have not come out or set themselves apart from this world. They see you but you see them not. They will come upon you before you have sense enough to run. They are hunting you even now, seeking whom they may devour, as whatever they placed on you to mark you or found its way into you will be activated, and then it will be like one eternally bad nightmare acid trip. In that moment you will understand fully that you will now live out every single regret and missed opportunity you ever had to latch onto the truth. As the restrainer is released from his sacred duty, all of these thoughts will echo in painfully empty waves for eternity, mixing with the swamp gas and evil grins that are turning into the black maws that lurked all along just below the surface. Oh, if only you had not squandered your time and had obtained the clean garment needed to gain eternal life and the spiritual eyes to realize. Realize.